If you're dealing with if you've got a population where just about everybody has got severe problems, I mean, it's craniofacial, that term Michael's got, craniofacial dystrophy, is an excellent description of the problem. And if people had hands that badly deformed, they'd go to all sorts of trouble to get them right, wouldn't they? They won't even recognise that we've got a pathological process, one symptom of which is crooked teeth.
Physiological.
Not pathological.
Pathology, I think, maybe, I'm not sure, that's interesting. I'm not quite sure where the bounds of physiology and pathology were. I mean, it's growth we're talking about. Is growth pathological or physiological?
Well,
is bad growth pathological?
Well, I might say is it can have a pathological growth pattern.
Yeah, I suppose so. I mean, it's not easy to know.
Yeah, but I mean, once the cranium has got 12 cranial nerves, and their exit route from the cranium, it has to be critical. I mean, the more distorted the cranium, then the more distortion there will be in transmission along those cranial nerves.
Even the majority of orthotropics don't realise how badly the cranium is messed up. You know this work I've done on seeing how the sphenoid bone is doing this inside the cranial vault. And nobody's picking up on that.
Well, interestingly enough, I mean, Robert Ricketts, he
showed the difference. But he used to say they have a vertical growth pattern or a horizontal growth pattern. He wasn't describing reason.
But what he did say was, he said, what he did, I hate cello, I loathe cello, I never use cello. He says, I said, because it moves in treatment. Which of course it does, but he says that was
only in young children.
Oh right,
and not very much.
But that's why you use Basion Nasion. But the other thing, I mean, even if you can get the concept that Nasion, to measure the maxillary position in relation to Nasion, is absolute nonsense.
I think my FN is by far the most stable play.
20 millimetres above Nasion.
40.
40?
Yes.
Okay.
Doesn't matter,
but whatever.
The top is 20 millimetres, will hit the air cells.
And
the air cells in men doesn't go in and out.
I misread it. I mean, I talk about Nasion vertical. But if they don't, I mean, when I ask this question, when I talk about anatomy, when I'm in a lecture, and I say to them, how many bones are in the cranium? Nobody knows that, so you tell them. And then you say,
I can't remember.
28. If you count the 6 in the ears.
Yes.
And then you say to them, how many bones in the cranium have got teeth in them? Nobody gets that right. They don't even know how many bones in the cranium have got teeth in them.
And the palatal bone has some, doesn't it?
The palatine bones,
yeah.
So I count 5 there. Bones, they don't know that. But that's what I'm saying, just that concept that it's a cranial distortion, and the cranial distortion is a serious health issue, and there's 4 bones in the cranium that have got teeth in, if you're going to change cranial relationships, the easiest way of doing that is to get hold of the teeth and move them.
They fit in well, provided you don't pull too hard, or which can pull.
So that's why you don't want to snap the joint. That's why rapid palatal expansion is out.
But semi-rapid is so much better.
So much better. And the research has been done on rabbits, which is I mean, it's good. I've read your book, John. I know the rabbits.
No. I wish I knew more research on that.
And then anecdotal evidence. Well, I mean, anybody who uses semi-rapid expansion will know that that's the way to go.
And the bone floats.
Particularly if you treat young people. So if you're talking about craniofacial dystrophy and reducing craniofacial dystrophy, and by doing that you've got to create a maxillary arch that will contain the tongue.
Absolutely.
And then if you then say, okay, then what we've got to do is we've got to get the tongue to support the change. You've got to do 2 things. You've got to get the maxilla developed to get the tongue up there, and then you've got to train the tongue to support it.
And you've got to keep the mandible up there or the tongue won't be.
Absolutely. That's the other thing I do to people. I say to everybody in the class, bite your back teeth together, bring your lips together, where's your tongue? And then I say, separate your back teeth by 2 or 3 millimetres, what's happened to your tongue? Whose tongue has dropped? And about half of them have. And then I say, now separate your lips by 2 millimetres. and what's happened to your tongue? And it's all dropped. So as soon as you've got your mouth open that much, all airways open, and you're a mouth breather and your tongue's low.
Yeah.
So the challenge is, that's why arch expansion's got such a bad name, because it's step one of a two-step process, isn't it? No good just going like that. Look, it all comes back.
Not all, but most.
Well, the majority, yeah. I've got a case 30 years out of treatment that I did that on Skip Truitt's advice, and it's still there.
Because the tongue went there.
The tongue went there, and he breathed through the nose.
You know, there's some interesting work done years ago by Bjork and Skeller, you may not remember the names. He actually put bone markers, remember he was a great man for bone markers, measured the width in the bone of the up maxilla when they were being expanded. He was using, I think, the old-fashioned old expansion at that time, about 0.5 millimetre a week. But what he found was interesting, that the width of the vault, that's the bits of the maxilla and the palatine bone, when they were widened, they didn't relapse. The actual infill in the middle maintained them solidly. What relapsed was the alveolus, so that the teeth would often relapse sometimes even more than the original width. So it was the alveolus and of course the teeth would collapsing, not the maxilla. Interesting.
It is interesting that, yeah. But so the question is, to me, how do you get the tongue up into the palate? And get to say that?
Yeah.
So
is your answer to that?
Well, I use the Maya brace.
Yeah, I mean that's why I would use a stage 3 at the age of 6.
Okay. So, but my point is that it's not the Maya brace. I mean, the Maya brace is the means to the end.
Yes, it's the patient.
It's how you deliver it to the patient. I mean, to me, that's absolutely critical.
Yes.
If the children do the exercises, it will work.
Yes.
And if they don't do the exercise, it won't work.
Yeah, I think that's possibly where I tend to worry, because exercises, in my experience, people do very well when under supervision, but tend not to do much on their own and in the years following.
I couldn't agree more. But when I say exercise, I mean exercise of wearing the Maya brace. I call that as an exercise, because when you've got the Maya brace in your mouth, you cannot contact the lip and tongue. So particularly all night, then you've got your lip and tongue. You can't swallow without tongue to palate contact.
Yeah.
So, but the treatment is, to me, the challenge is, that's why. And this is what I said in Chicago, and nobody's ever asked me to speak since.
Yes.
Because I think what I said was true, that soft locks are great.
Yes.
But if that's all you're relying on, what do you do if they don't work?
Well, I mean, I would say there's nothing else.
Well, that's what I'm saying, you see.
Yeah, I mean, this is, Well, therefore, perhaps I'm not willing to take a compromise, but I'm saying that if you can't, the advantage of soft locks is that it makes the child do it. You aren't doing it. They have to keep their mouth shut.
Yeah.
And I don't think there is a better way of teaching children anything.
Well, I'd agree with that, except that I do think you need to do all that. I think if you that's what I was trying to say to you. What you need to do is combine the bio block and what we do.
Yes.
But you don't.
Well,
I've been speaking to Mike about that for 4 years, and he said, "Oh, we go upstairs." I look up here, and it's a shit box. I mean, this isn't you're not going to teach children anything in this room.
Not much. You're not.
You're not. I mean, you look at all the research done on teaching. Does school, do 7-year-old children go in a room like this to learn anything?
No, that's interesting, because you're right. That's not what I do. I don't teach or treat the habits of children other than making them keep their mouth shut, because I probably focus almost entirely on that. All right, I move the maxilla to start with, so you push the teeth into more or less the right position, but then all I do is teach them to keep their mouths shut, but teach them to close their own mouth. Right. This is where we do separate, not differ, is I don't think there's another way. And there may be in future, but I don't see how it can do it.
Well, I think you can by encouraging and supporting the children and finding a technique and an environment. We're not going to get all of them. Whatever everyone does, we're not going to get all of them.
No.
But I think we get a larger number. You see, when I've been watching Michael this morning, and child's in the chair for maybe, say, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And they stand up and he talks to them for 2 or 3 minutes and they walk out.
Yeah.
That's back to front.
No, well, if you're trying to train the children, but we don't do the training by exercises or...
He says, stand up there, stand up there.
Michael says that. I really don't worry about it. I'm there just to get a good-looking face which stays straight.
Well, why don't you compliment what you do with that? That's what I don't understand.
Well, because I don't think it's worthwhile. I think that if they wear the stage 3, that will correct almost everything.
Okay, let's take that point as a given.
Yeah.
How can we make it easier for them to wear a class 3? Stage 3?
Well, the answer is if you treat them at 4, 5, 6, and you know how to do it without hurting them and giving them right basic instructions, I think a couple of years and you've taught them how to do it, and then I think another 3, 4, maybe 5 years just wearing it at night while they complete their growth pattern. I think all that growth pattern will be better, and by the time they finish they will be naturally keeping their lips together. You'll need to do nothing else. That's what's going on in my mind, and I haven't yet seen an alternative to that.
Okay, so let's take that as a given. Let's take that as a baseline.
Yeah.
How could you get that better? How could you get more success doing
Yes, more success, not better. I think that's perfect.
Okay. How do you get more success in applying that treatment modality?
I don't think I could, and I will. If I tried to remember doing this on the health service at one time, and I just found the ratio of failure too high.
Yeah.
Now this is a sociological problem, but clearly the higher up the social scale people are, the more they are committed to targets, objectives, etc. The lower down the social scale, the less they try. And therefore I found quite a high ratio of people at the bottom end of the socio-economic scale would not make much effort, but then they would finish up with faces which are droopy, thick lips, open mouth postures, drooling habits. You're right, those are failures in my book, but you are doing the right thing in picking those up, giving them things which help them, whereas what I'm doing is of no value to them at all.
Yeah, I haven't made the point yet. The point I'm trying to make is that I think you could help the children that you're treating to achieve your goal by adding to what you do, particularly doing the sort of things that Mike does, but not necessarily that, particularly on breathing training, particularly doing these things, which you need to do in addition to make it easier for the kids to achieve those goals.
But if they are wearing at stage 3, we make them wear it 20 hours a day.
I understand that.
Their breathing improves automatically.
I understand that. I'm
not talking about the cases that don't do it.
I'm talking about how to make it easier for them to do it. Even those cases that work out really well, wouldn't it be better if you could make it easier for them?
You're probably right. I'd say I don't do that. Perhaps I should, but in my mind I'm saying to myself, is it actually worth it? Because to give them a lot of extra exercises, I think is distracting. I try to focus and say, do one thing, that's all you need to do. And I listen to Michael tell people to do lots of different things. Exercises, do that, chew gum. Chew gum, I think, is one of the things which is really good, easy to achieve and successful. And I do that. But most of the extra things, I think, can be more of a distraction than a long-term help, because the objective must be the 20-year cure.
Yeah, well, I think that's where we disagree then. That's where I disagree, because if you're trying to tell a child to keep their lips together and the tongue in the roof of the mouth, it's definitely easier when they sit up straight.
Yes, I agree.
Well, why don't you help them do that?
Well, I think if they're keeping their mouths shut, they'll teach themselves.
It's sort of reverse argument. That might be true, but they have to learn. They have to nut that out themselves. But if you say to them, if you're sitting up straight and you sit up like this, sitting up straight and standing up there, it's much easier to have your mouth closed and then like this.
Yeah.
But they're trying to get their mouth closed and they're sitting like this.
No,
and they're on the iPad like this.
No, I get very interested. I don't have the research to show it, but I think the people who successfully wear a stage 3 automatically correct their head and neck posture and even probably shoulder and spinal problems. Right. Automatically. I might be wrong, but I think they do.
I think they do. I think those kids that you achieve successfully only achieve it because they get those things.
Yes.
I think they only get the good growth and development and stability because they sit up straight, because they tongue down, because they breathe through the nose and all those things. But those things are complementary. You won't get the one without the other.
No, you won't. I agree, but therefore you only need to get one.
No, because that's where I disagree. Because I think the ones, I mean, John, don't tell me you get 100% success with the locks.
Of course not.
No, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. So why don't you want to try and increase that percentage?
But when I look at the failures to get 100% of the lock, with nearly all of them, because they don't wear it enough, and or because they're dropping their jaw too much. Right. Now, to me, there's only one cure for either of those, and that is to adjust the locks and get them to wear it more.
Yeah, but how can you help them do that?
Well, if giving them exercises, you're saying, would help.
Well, all I'm saying is, to get what we've got to do, they've got to sit up straight.
Well, yes.
Well, why don't you tell them that?
Well, if they wear the stage 3 and keep their mouth shut, they'll teach that to them themselves.
Okay, so we agree with that block. We agree that group. But the next group, the group that we've got to follow, why can't we tell them?
But the next group are the ones who aren't wearing it, and that's why they don't improve their posture.
But maybe they don't wear it. Maybe they don't wear it because they are like this. Maybe they don't wear it because they don't know. I mean, because they do need to make that connection. They do need to make that connection to sit up straight and stand up straight.
I think when we've reached a clear point of division here, John, you are saying help them with other means to wear stage 3 more.
Yes.
I'm saying I think the simple objective of wearing a stage 3 more doesn't require additional XP2s or exercise. It may help, but I sincerely think that it will be shorter and easier not to bother.
Right.
And John, I think it's good to have a chat and separate things out. Anyway, now just take you by the hand. Say thanks to my guys come all the way from Australia just to chat. And I hope the public learned something from that. And all of you will see that the whole question of how to correct open mouth posture, and that's basically what we're talking about, is full of controversies of one sort or another, and its correction, it depends on different methods. And many people feel children should be trained to keep their mouths shut, and of course every mother can do that. I tend to feel that they need simple aids which don't just help them to learn, but in a sense make them teach themselves to do so. John, is there another final word you'd like to say on that?
Well, what I would say is, if I was making a point, is that what we're dealing with is a health issue.
Yeah.
And the health issue is to do with growth distortions within the cranium.
Yeah.
And to get that right is really difficult. To change growth patterns is really difficult. But even to acknowledge that that's what we're trying to do, I think is important.
Ah, yes. We agree on so much.
Yeah.
We shouldn't worry about how, and we don't disagree, it's just different emphasis.
Exactly, yeah.
Anyway, thanks a lot.
That's okay, yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.